Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I thought I'd do a quick video kind of about the origination of this 67 Valiant project. Wanted to build a little car to go drag racing, something I'd never done before, and I wanted something that would run kind of high nines, hopefully. And do like drag and drive stuff, right? I want to do Sick Week and Hot Rod Drag Week and Rocky Mountain Race Week and that sort of stuff. So that was the origination of this thing. I found this car online on Craigslist, actually. I bought it. It was cheap, and I got what I paid for. As it turned out, the car was a lot more work than I originally thought. My buddy Rick and I started by tearing the car down to absolute bare chassis. There's the original Slant 6 that was coming out of it. As you can see, it was a bit of a mess. But it's what you expect with a 60-year-old car. Didn't have much rust. Was an original Arizona car, so that was kind of nice. And we knew we were going to strip it down to bare nothing anyway because it was going to be a car for drag racing. So we didn't really care too much. There's the original K-member coming out. Got rid of the torsion bars and the heavy steering box and all that junk that gets in the way. And I had a new Gerst system to go into it. Here I put it on rollers so we could move it around in the shop, could get it on and off the lift. There's some chassis stiffening. That's from US Car Tool. Torque boxes, rad support, frame connectors, fender braces, all that kind of good stuff. Heavy duty stuff. There's the original condition of the master cylinder. So as you can see, we weren't working with a cherry here. So we stripped the car all the way down and found out that we needed new floor pans. And kind of bit the bullet and putting in, checking the fit of the frame connectors here. But before we could do any of that stuff, I wanted the car sandblasted to bare metal and epoxied so that it wouldn't rust and I'd have time to work on it because I knew it was going to be long term. So there's a kit from S&W Race Cars that we got, and that's beginning of the roll bar. So here's what we got back from the stripper. As you can see, some of the panels on the car, well, all of the panels on the car were beat to death. Every panel on the car had damage, every single one. The hood, the trunk, both quarters, both doors, both front fenders, the grille, everything needed body work. And I hadn't expected that. And frankly, that kind of put me about a year behind. But it is what it is. So away we go. So here's the car up on the lift. I'm getting it level and square and straight so that the changes that we make are going to be accurate and they're going to be square and plumb. And everything is going to, drive correctly when we're all said and done. Here I'm getting ready to put in the brace for the rad support. It helps to really stiffen up the front end on the unibody. There's fender braces, and they box in the top of that bracket there. So everything is quite a bit stronger than the factory made it. And then as we would proceed on, we'd have to make some more modifications, and we ended up taking the floor pans completely out of it, and with the help of the old plasma cutter. And we ended up putting in all new floor pans from Auto Metal Direct, which was tedious because we had to drill out probably 1,000 of the factory spot welds. But we got it all out, and we started to fit the new panels in, and they fit really well. It's a nice product. The only thing they didn't address was me wanting to move the center where the drive shaft goes, the tunnel, to the center of the car instead of 3 inches offset the way it had been from the factory. So you'll see later how we did that. But anyway, there's the new floor pans going in, and we got those all drilled and welded in and bonded, and they turned out really good. I was happy with that. So there's the new floor pans installed. And so then the next thing we did was install the frame stiffeners, and all of the torque boxes and the bracing and everything was all done. And then it was time to start cutting the back end of the car out and getting ready for the back half kit. This is some welds that show how the penetration was on the frame stiffeners coming right through the new floor pans. Everything welded and really strong. New bare brakes, that'll eventually go on all four corners. If you're going to go fast, you got to stop fast, so it's all part of being safe. And then there's that Moser 9-inch Ford rear end. We put an all-new rear end in the car, 32 splines. It's good for about 1,200 horsepower, which is plenty, 500 more than I'm going to have. And so we're getting ready to modify the front frame rails to accept the new front suspension that's going in from the folks at Gerst. This was not difficult. We just welded in some holes and cleaned up the frame and got that kind of ready, and then we basically just primed it. And I had the new front K-member sent out, and we got it powder coated. That's a shot of the back half kit that came in from S&W Race Cars. And there's the Gerst kit back from powder coat. So that was a matter of just assembling that and putting the rack and pinion steering in it, and then basically bolting it up to the stock frame rails, and upper and lower A-arms, adjustable Viking coilover shocks, and just getting the new front suspension in place. And this saved us a ton of room under the hood for headers, oil pan, all the kind of stuff that's important when you're building a race car. So there it is, kind of in place, and now the plasma cutting begins. We basically cut the whole back half of the car out, from right behind the driver's seat all the way to the back of the car. The wheel wells, everything, completely out. As you can see, nothing but air. And that's where the new back half frame from S&W is going to go in. And again, the setup on this is really critical. You have to make sure that things are really square and straight and level. So we used probably 3 or 4 different kinds of levels. We used a laser on it all the time. Here we're boxing in the existing frame to accept the new frame rails from S&W. And there's the actual back half frame rails themselves. You can see the 4-link brackets are welded on. You're looking here at the front end of the kit. This is the closest to you here in the picture is the front, and then I've mocked up the axle in place and making sure we have the center line of that where we want it, and not only front to rear but left to right. And again, everything is checked and measured and checked and measured and made sure that everything fits before we start welding stuff in. So here's mocking up the frame rails and getting them in place, making sure, again, everything is level. I have bubble levels, I get digital levels, we've got lasers on it. As it turned out, it was really good. It turned out to be within about a 1/16 of an inch from corner to corner, front to rear of the car, which is actually straighter than it was from the factory. So I was really happy with how it turned out, but it did take me 3 or 4 times as long as it would have taken a pro. This is my first time doing a back half, so lots of mistakes along the way and lots of learning going on, but it was all worth it in the end, and it turned out really well. I'm very happy with it, how it all ended up turning out. That picture there shows how important it is to remember where your bumper bolts go and making sure you've got a hole to access them. But so this is some of the new metal that we welded in. That is the tube for the roll bar, and that's what's going to go in next. Okay, so the next thing we had to do was install the rear roll bar. And it mounts up between the frame rails and has 2 rods that come down and attach to the top of the rear axle. But before we could do that, we had to basically make sure the axle was in the correct position, forward and back. So I put the axle in there, kind of hung it in place, and then I stood a tire up and kind of mocked in, where the tire was in the opening in the wheel well, and then made sure the axle was in the center of the tire. And once I had the axle pretty much where I expected it to go, within half an inch or so, we could then determine where the mount for the roll bar would go, and then where the brackets would have to weld on to the top of the rear axle. So, basically using plumb bobs again and just kind of getting everything straight and square and plumb and making sure everything's in there. We were able to weld in the anti-roll bar and get that all in place, and then we had to make the length of the rods with the joints on the end. That's just chrome moly tubing, so we had to weld the ends in those and cut them to the right length. And anyway, it was a process, but we got it all done, and it turned out pretty good. And then so you would think the next thing we're going to do is the roll cage, but I wanted to get a head start on some of the body work before there were a bunch more tubes in the car in my way. So the next thing I did was start working on the worst of the damage on the body, and that'll be in the next upcoming video. So for now, this is the end of this video. Thanks very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your buddies if you found it useful. Great. If you have comments, constructive criticisms, whatever, I'd love to hear from you. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.